In the Gun, episode number 49, almost to a half century here of your new favorite WVU football podcast. Wesley Uhler with the best teammates in the business. We've got the ITG 3 back together here. The signal caller, Jed Drenning, and of course the Runaway beer truck, Owen Schmitt. Big O, all right, how was the Burt Kreischer concert last week? Tell us about it. Was it hilarious? Was it a good show?
Dude, it was great. Love seeing him live. He was as advertised. Very funny.
Shirt off the whole time.
Chugged a Bud Light, or I don't know if it was Bud Light, but it looked like they were blue cans. But chugs the Bud Light and then rips his shirt off. Crowd goes nuts. Funny story though. Before the so I ended up going with Judah Price, who is Gatorade Player of the Year in West Virginia, right, running back from down here at Independence High School. Before the contest or before the show, they had, like the camera up, right? And they're looking through the crowd. And I think it says like, take your top off or whatever. I think that was like the slogan on it. So like for a minute, nobody's doing nothing. Then all of a sudden, like, Bert's a bigger man. So like all these like bigger guys start taking their shirts off and doing their thing. And the crowd's like going nuts and stuff. And like, I'm like, well, shoot, this place is big, but we're going to get on here. You know what I mean? They're going to find us. So we're sitting in the nosebleeds and they end up rolling up and they're pointing at us, and Judah takes his shirt off and flexes, right? He puts on a big flex and then he turns around and flexes his back. And dude, the entire audience just goes, it boos him. I'm telling you, it was the loudest chant ever, dude. Everybody booed his ass.
But like he's in good shape. Get him out.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. He was in too good a shape, dude. And then I'm just thinking they're laughing. I'm like, nobody knows this kid's in high school. You know what I mean? And oh man, it was just so funny.
That's
and then
great. That's great.
I looked over at him. I said, hey man, that's about what it feels like when you make a bad play on the field.
That's right.
So you already kind of got a warm up for the next level if you deem necessary to go.
This kid 18.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, he's 18 years old. I'll tell you.
Judah's, now I'm not going to put words into his mouth. He was thinking of possibly walking on to WVU. I really hope he does. I think he's got a good shot. He's very strong in the mind. And he's a heck of an athlete. I wish him all the best on his journey and what he does next. But yeah, the show was great. We got a good laugh about that, and there was it was well worth it. I was glad we went down.
I love it. I love a good stand-up show.
Dude, and he's great, man. He's got some great stories.
Fantastic.
He's really funny. I'm mad at myself. I can't remember the guy who was the second dude who opened,
like his warm-up act,
was from Elk River. I can't, West Virginia.
Nice.
I can't remember his name to save my life, but he was awesome too, which really helped it out. And it was good stuff. Probably kind of a hard, West Virginia can be, probably a kind of a rough crowd
tougher crowd to get laughing.
Tough crowd. So those guys did an amazing job, and it was a great show, man.
I used to bounce in a comedy club, guys, and in a past life, and it was the most underpaid, coolest job I ever had.
Yeah, I bet that was fun.
It really was.
I tell you what, listen, for all the forms of entertainers, right? Whether you do what we're doing here, if you're on TV, if you're on the radio, if you're a musician, if you're abroad, like if you're an actor or an actress, whatever. Like, to me, stand-up comedians are the ones who can do it well. It's the most impressive form of entertainment because
prolific. Yeah.
You've got no shield, you've got no tools, you've got no props. It's you and a microphone and thousands of people staring at you. You've got no music, no guitar, no band. It's not an actor who, if you mess up a take, you just do another one. Like
success isn't an accident. We always talk about timing, right? Well, Seinfeld famously, back when he was getting started, he would record his shows at these small clubs that he'd work, and then he would leave and go back to his little apartment in New York and Manhattan, and he would transcribe everything he said, and then he would rate the laughter he got based on the way he said it. So he'd check his timing, he'd check the verbiage, and it was, I tell you what, when I worked the comedy club, it was the same comedians would come in. And we'd have the act twice Thursday night, twice Friday night, twice Saturday night. And when they were good, I was laughing just as hard. I'm standing
the
off
second time. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The sixth time at the end of the show Saturday night, as it was the first time I heard it. But when it's bad, you're in for a long 3 nights.
Oh man, it's like there's nothing worse than like the silence of the crowd.
You feel the crickets, man.
It's like you want to just crawl into a hole. I can only imagine what
I can't imagine. Like Wes said, there's nothing to hide behind. There's no second take. It's just you and the crowd and the mic. And I mean, those guys get it down so cold. The good ones, whether you're Chappelle, whether you're Seinfeld, whoever you might be, but timing means as much to them as it does any athlete, right?
Well, yeah, and nowadays it's probably even harder to do stand up with all the filming
100%.
and video. People are
100%.
Jokes are already heard, so people kind of already have a feeling what's going on. So I'm sure it's and that's just like concerts and stuff today too. You know what I mean? Nothing's really live.
All the set lists are post online, and
so it's tough to get that. So I definitely I agree with you there, Wes. It was definitely something to watch, and he's a very funny man.
It's just it's like it's to me, right? Like all of the athleticism and everything, like it all goes back to hundreds of years ago, just who could run the fastest and who could jump the highest, right? You know what I mean? Like original Olympics, who can wrestle the best, who can run the fastest, who could jump the highest. Now we play all these games with all this different equipment and hockey sticks and baseball bats and basketballs and all this different stuff. Like to me, stand-up comedy is just back in year one, right? All right, well, I can run faster than you. No, you can't. All right, let's go. Let's run it. You got no equipment. You got nothing. It's just raw. And the ones who do it well, it's a great form of entertainment.
I'll date myself here. I saw Eddie Murphy Raw in the theater.
Nice.
That had to be good.
On my recruiting trip to Sanford,
that's awesome.
With Jimbo and Terry and all of them. Yeah. That's what year that was. Yeah.
That's great. I love it. This episode of ITG is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline remains your number one source for all of your betting needs this season. Get analysis of every play, every prop, and every point at BetOnline. You always find the latest odds, team matchup information, and game trends at BetOnline. Updated odds for everything from live games, conference championships, right through to the NBA playoffs and the championship game. BetOnline is your basketball headquarters this season, so head to the website today or use your mobile device to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Be sure to use the promo code Bleav when you sign up to receive your bonus. That's BLEAV at betonline.ag, where the game starts. Speaking of headlines here, Jed, Owen, pretty interesting one that involves a family heirloom that had been, we're approaching episode 50 here on ITG. Well, Jed, a WVU fan just got back a family heirloom that had been gone for more than 50 years. Pretty cool story here.
Yeah. Owen, let's talk about this. They had their home broken into half a century ago, right? So the next thing you know, these artifacts and these heirlooms from the 1954 Sugar Bowl turned up missing. And we were talking off the air, just what a cool story this is. First of all, anybody who wants to seek out the particulars and the details of this, John Antonik did a great job at WVUsports.com writing about this in the last few days. So I'd encourage you to visit WVUsports.com and check out John's story. But Owen, walk us through kind of the big picture of what happened here. I mean, this family and this player lost. Can you imagine that? I mean, this would have been your Sugar Bowl merchandise, your Fiesta Bowl merchandise. Can you imagine somebody, a decade later, 15 years later, breaking into your home that turns up missing and you think it's gone forever? And then here we are years later, the family gets it back.
Yeah, no, really awesome. And some of the stuff, I mean, World War II rifle or World War I rifles were taken, and obviously that Sugar Bowl get up. So like we were talking before, I was just thinking, man, I can't imagine if, that stuff of mine was taken and this stuff was taken for so long. And the girls, the family, they were looking online, looking up to see if somebody possibly was like trying to hawk it online and stuff like that. Meanwhile, this guy anonymously ends up getting a hold of them through multiple stories, kind of passed through, how small our world really is. And it comes to light that, this thing's coming to fruition. Like it's there, it's real. He ends up sending it back to them. and they present it to their mother, and she ended up, gets into tears. Just a really cool story. I can only imagine. You guys definitely have to check it out. John did a wonderful job. There's some great details. I won't spare you the whole story, but definitely check it out so he can get his credit for that. But I mean, just a cool story. I mean, you think of those heirlooms in your family, and now maybe not so much taking the precedence of what somebody like myself or Wes, yourself, or our own signal caller here, all those trophies or those little bowl gifts or whatever that you've kept. I mean, heck, I have some bowl gear that's still in the plastic that I just never took out because I just wanted to keep it the way it was. I never wore it. It's crazy, man. I just have it still like that, and in bags. Like I have a bunch of Sugar Bowl stuff that's just packed in a Sugar Bowl bag with all the gifts and stuff that we got.
That's awesome.
Kind of cool to display in my man cave and stuff like that. But I just think, like, back then, especially, how like much that would have meant to have that watch. You know what I mean? Just because you're talking a whole different.
It's a time before memorabilia was a common thing.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so it's just like, it's crazy to me to think it went that long and now it's back home where it needs to be. And just a really cool story. Definitely have a must read.
Let's tee this up, Wes. I'm going to encourage people through the first paragraph in John's story, and we'll leave it at this. Okay. Now, bear in mind, the hero in this story that we're talking about chose to remain anonymous.
Yep.
He didn't want a lot of fanfare over this. He just wanted to do the right thing and return it to the rightful family, the rightful owners. John writes, Jill Stevenson, the daughter of West Virginia University football player Bill Underdonk, got a phone call a couple weeks ago from a dear friend passing along a message to call a mysterious sounding man from New York. He wanted to speak to someone related to a W. Underdonk, but could not elaborate on the nature of the call. Immediately, Jill had a pretty good idea what this was all about. So that gives you some sense as to how long this family had been pursuing these items, or this item in particular. But again, wvusports.com. Be sure to check it out. If you want to Google it, Priceless Family Heirloom returned after 53 years. Great job by John Antoniuk. Great story. Nice little piece of Mountaineer football history there that warms the heart.
It certainly does for me. And listen, I've confessed this to you guys before. I'm a sports memorabilia junkie. I mean, I've got stuff from my dad and my grandpa's that predates. I mean, right here, I got a 1989 Fiesta Bowl hat. I was born in 1991. This thing's older than I am. I mean, like, I've got this Fiesta Bowl yearbook behind me. This thing's older than I am. My grandpa loved WVU and Roberto Clemente, right? So, I mean, I've got all kinds of Roberto Clemente stuff that's 50, 60 some years old at this point. So, yeah, this really, if you're someone who's into sports memorabilia, whether it's stuff that you had that from playing like Owen, whether you're just a nerd like me who likes this kind of stuff, really cool story, warms the heart. And it's good to know too. I mean, especially in days like these, right, that there's still people out there doing the right, some guy didn't want credit for this, didn't want anything. He just wanted the stuff to go back to the family. Just really cool all around.
This speaks to what this kind of stuff is really all about.
Yeah.
It's going to matter far more to the family than it is to Bill Underdonk, right, Owen? I mean,
correct.
What you have is going to matter more to Waylon, right? I mean,
absolutely.
It doesn't matter if it's somebody. It doesn't matter if it's your kid or somebody else in your family. Like my Kennedy Award, my Hardman Award, none of that stuff's in my house. My mom has all that. It's at mom and dad's house. She has a section of the, one room kind of dedicated to the kids with pictures and this and that. It's all over there. Now, one of the things is, Owen, you don't have that stuff hanging on your wall so your kid sees it every day, right? You're not beating your chest about that. But other people in your family appreciate these things oftentimes far more than you ever could. And that's what makes this story, to put a bow on it, to me so cool, is it's not even the player who earned it, not even the father, but the kids. And it's just a really cool story because so often those are the people these items mean the absolute most to anyway.
Yeah, very cool.
Said.
Definitely a must read.
That's well said. Absolutely. Yeah, check that out. Good stuff by Johnny Antoniuk for sure. And we'll get him here on the podcast at some point to maybe talk about that and many other things here. This episode of ITG also brought to you by our friends at Fortis for roof performance and financial security guaranteed. Make sure you're visiting fortis.us.com. Jed, spring ball updates as we roll along here. We've got about a week and a half until the spring game as we record this on Tuesday, April 11th. Spring game, of course, on Saturday, the 22nd at 1 p.m. What do you got for us, Jed, moving and shaking at spring ball over the past week?
Well, I texted you guys the tweet that the football account had posted about the catch behind his back by.
Oh, that was a great.
It was a
what
great
a catch, man.
And in the red zone, and think about the target radius. That's what that kid brings to the table. Okay, yeah. When you get a kid that size, a 6'6" plus type of target, that's what we've been lacking in that room. When you look around the landscape of this league, it seems like every week we're facing one of those dudes, right? Whether it's Iowa State, whether it's Oklahoma State, whether it's Oklahoma. Well, now we finally have one of those. And the target radius of a guy like that all over the field, but particularly in the red zone where he made that catch, you can do some creative things. And when you study some of the practice tape and when you go to some of the practices, you see them getting creative and finding ways to feed him the football and give him some opportunities. And that's one of the things that when I spoke to Garrett, he was talking about. They are trying to come up with some different ways to make sure he has some opportunities to touch the football and they make the most out of him. And this is the time of year that you're going to see how all those things best work together. I mean, we've talked about the depth of the running back room. We've talked about the composition of this offense, starting at the point of attack with this offensive line being the greatest strength, and then the versatility of the running back room. Well, I would argue the pivot we're trying to make offensively is going to fit us far better than even what we were doing with Graham. Because if there was a limitation on Graham's version of the air raid, the indictment might be that in the passing game, you didn't really anticipate or expect a lot out of that running back room. It was kind of a lot of swing routes and check downs. They didn't get real creative with it. It was more asking more of the receiver room and things downfield, but they weren't really capitalizing on necessarily what that running back room could do. And we're leaning into the idea or the notion of doing more of that. And it's a perfect time to do it. Like, Owen, we talked so many times about what Rich did with you. Okay, he went from you being a straight line fullback, an old school fullback, to saying, well, you know what? If we just put Owen a fullback, we also like to run a lot of 11 personnel. That's going to limit his snaps, right? So what's a creative way to keep him on the field or get him more snaps? Well, he started repping you at basically a tight end, a quasi tight end with that Ram package, right? And that's 11 personnel look while keeping you on the field. So we could go with fullback, tailback, or tailback, single back tight end. That's the type of thing. I would imagine, Owen, you probably first incorporated that in the spring, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably the first hard look that you guys took at doing that so you could rep your way through it. And then by the time the summer rolled around. So, I mean, isn't that what the spring's all about? It's a time to really focus on fundamentals, but also tinker. And when you move guys around, which we'll get into in a second, that's another part of this tinkering, right?
Yeah, the experimentation for sure. Like that's when you can kind of see what you were thinking about, or just the guy's attributes, special abilities, what they can do against obviously your team, but to really be able there and be creative, you know what I'm saying? Really get in there and open it up a little bit. Even though Rich's playbook was very, I would say condensed as far as the actual plays go, the looks that he created with the personnel was where the magic really happened. And I think that's, obviously where they took me and kind of went there. But just like here today, this spring, Brown and them, they're getting able to open up a little bit and see that creativity and see what can do what, I mean? That's really, like you said, that is what spring is all about. It's being able to tinker a little bit, fine tune, refine, do what they got to do. And reps for some of them younger cats that maybe didn't get so many during the year and development. So it'll be interesting to kind of see. I know it's so kind of so much downscale from what we're used to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In previous years, obviously. So now instead of kind of like a full contact deal in spring, it's more of a I think that they'll probably still hit some.
Thud at best, yeah.
Yeah.
And even Thud Owen's not what Thud used to be.
Yeah, I know. It's just like I don't know.
Yeah.
It is what it is, man. Hey, you guys are
that's
coaching
the nature of the modern game. But
yeah,
to your point, it's all about setting the table as many ways as you can to make it look more confusing to the defense. But it's really the same thing to the offense. And as I watch the tape and I study practice and I see what's playing out in the spring, you do see some fun things going on with that running back room, whether it's CJ, whether it's Garrett connecting with a big play down the field, using him in a way that we didn't see a year ago, whatever it might be. They're going to try and maximize the skill set out of the guys populating that room. I mean, from Jalen to CJ on down the line. I mean, all four of those cats can do some different things, even some of the newbies, right? So how does that mesh with the new skill set of mobile quarterbacks? We got two of them that can move. One of them can scoot. One of them's physical and tough to bring down. And then we got some guys on the perimeter that they might be right now not getting the love they deserve, but at least a couple of those guys can make some plays and create some issues for a defense. Now the question is, how do all those things come together? Again, leaning on what we hope to be our greatest strength, where you see guys like, now we can get into some of the moving guys around and moving those pieces and creating more versatility. Doug Nestor repping more and more at that tackle spot. Brandon Yates sliding down to the interior. He's really a swing man that loads you with a ton of versatility. It's all about getting your best five out there, but you also want to have answers. That's one of the things this is about. You want to get your best five out there, but what are your answers if something happens to one of those five? Or, okay, can this guy move there and still understand and do that? So yeah, that's what this is going to be all about. And I love the fact that we're repping guys at different spots. I love the fact that those guys are logging more and more snaps together. And I do like the fact that each day and each rep, those quarterbacks are more and more and more developing continuity and some sort of rhythm and relationship, not just with the running back room, but obviously with the receivers. And as we see, those big tight ends.
Yeah. It's listen, like you said, it's time to tinker. It's time to try some things. If you're if you're not going to do that in April, you're certainly not going to do any of that in summer ball and throughout the fall. And yeah, it's exciting to have options too, right, Jed? I mean, that's what you want this time of year as well too. You want some valid options.
Yeah, one quick thing, and we'll revisit this quarterback battle all the live long day. It's not going to be settled anytime soon. Again, both those guys and Garrett and Nico bring different things to the table. But here's what's interesting to me. I think Garrett is going to play a different role in this system than he was playing a year ago. Okay. One that could more readily benefit him. But when you look at Nico, here's one of the things I think about him. Rich always told us when I was coaching with him, even, he would always say, look, when it comes to quarterbacks, he believes, and he always has believed, that it kind of takes 3 semesters to get their feet under them. Right. And oftentimes that's a spring, a fall, and a spring. So once you're in that third semester is when you sometimes start to see quarterbacks turn that corner and things finally start to slow down visually for them. I mean, look at when Pat started doing what Pat did, Owen. It was midway to that third semester. He was on campus for that full year, right? That fall and that spring. And it was the following fall, his third semester. Well, so often throughout the arc of Rich's career, he talked about that. And it's common in the quarterback room. And now as Nico is in his third semester, right? So that's kind of what you're looking at. He was here last spring and things were going 1,000 miles an hour for him. You could tell by looking at him. So even to a large extent last year, over the course of the season, it started to slow down a little bit for him later in the year. Now, sometimes in practice, he looks like a bit of a different kid. Still not entirely all there, obviously. Still a work in progress. But I think we got 2 guys who can compete, and they bring different things to the table. And this is going to be fun because they got toys around them to play with. But that's kind of where I see Nico at right now. And that's why I think he's at a critical juncture in his career.
Well said by you. Absolutely is. I like that 3 semesters thing. I think it took me about 3 semesters to figure out that I was actually supposed to go to class, and it's just not Tuesdays at Shooters and Thursdays at Fat Daddies. So it takes us all a little bit of time in our different ways. But I tell you what, knowing what we've seen from Garrett, if Nico's starting to turn a corner, that's encouraging. You want competition everywhere. I think in a lot of times in the confines of conversations, like, I was guilty about doing this with the Steelers for so long. In the confines of competition, as it relates to what spring ball at the college level, training camp in the NFL and in college, whatever. like we want competition usually at every position. Sure. Except for quarterback, right? Like we just want to know who our quarterback is, and that's it. We'll have competition everywhere else. I don't think it's such a bad thing at quarterback either, particularly when you've got two guys like this, like you said, Jed. Different, a lot of things they do similar, but certainly different skill sets. Young, really looking to grab those reins. I just, I picture Chad Scott and Neil Brown. You guys know the scene in The Dark Knight where
yes,
where Heath Ledger and they capture the guys in the room and he's like, we've got room for aggressive expansion, but not for all of you. So we're gonna have
the pool cue,
the pool cue over his leg and throws it down and says, we're gonna have tryouts. That's just how I picture every day. One pool cue between Garrett and Nico, and we're gonna have.
You scratched me where I itched with the Dark Knight reference.
Tryouts. Yeah. This episode of ITG, episode 49, also brought to you in part by our friends at Toothman Ford. Folks, we all know cars cost less in Grafton. Get your butt down to Grafton. Make sure you're checking out the great inventory at Toothman Ford. They've got it all listed on their website as well, too, if you want to do some scoping out before you head to Grafton. Make sure you're showing some love to Toothman, who's been showing a lot of NIL love to our WVU athletes as well, too. Speaking of WVU athletes, a little blast from the past here as we start to wrap up this episode. Jed came up with a good idea this week. Now, I know if you're someone who's on social media, you've seen these type of graphics, right? These assemble your squad type graphics. Yeah. Sometimes you see them where you get a certain amount of money, right? And here's the $5 tier and the $4 tier and the $3 tier on down, and build your ideal team. Sometimes you see this on Thanksgiving, right? Here's $15, build your ideal Thanksgiving plate, right? And turkey and gravy are $5, and cranberry sauce is $2, whatever, right? Mashed potatoes are $3, right? Yeah, dinner rolls are $1, something like that. Yeah, exactly. Well, Jed came up with a really good one of these for WVU football, and it's on our Twitter page at In the Gun Podcast. If you want to see it there, and I'll throw it up on screen here now as well too if you're watching on YouTube. Quarterback, running back, 2 wide receivers, an offensive utility player, and a defense. So you need 6 in total. You've got $18 to spend. So quick math, right? That's an average of $3 per position, but you can obviously move and shake that. So, Jed, I did just have one question for you before we dive into this.
There's many questions, but go ahead.
Sometimes on graphics like this, things like this, people will say, if there's someone or something that's not on the list that you think should be, you can have that for a $1 value, right? For the lowest tier. So my question for you is, if there's a player that I'm interested in WVU history who's not on your graphic, can I have them for the lowest tier of $1, or are we sticking to just who's on the graphic?
Well, we're gonna.
Owen's laughing at me.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Owen's like, Wes has something cooking in his.
There's a write-in element to this, right? I mean, in other words, we may do another version of this later on.
Okay.
But for starters, it started off as a piece of paper, right? I'm just sitting around bored, waiting on some stuff to play out, and I can't just sit.
You bored? No, never.
My mind races, so I start. Hey, I wonder if. And then I start compartmentalizing things. And of course, it's not a complete list. It's not an official list. The priorities, by no means am I married to any of them, the price rates. Okay. But so what I started doing, I started throwing it together by position. And I have, as you touched on, a quarterback, a running back, 2 receivers, an offensive utility, which was kind of a cool way to get some of the
Owen Schmitts of the world.
The Owen Schmitts or the Ira Rogers. I mean, some of these guys, Danny Buggs, was used a lot in the run game.
Jed, you warmed my heart by having Wes Hours on there. I just got to tell you.
I thought I might.
The West Express, one of the first WVU football players I remember vividly, because we had the same first name. And I tell you what, West had to walk so that Owen Schmitt could run. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. He paved the way. That's right. He paved the way. So now there is a control element to this, and it didn't take people long to point it out. Somebody had said, and first of all, we're going to keep this up, and next week we're going to revisit this.
Okay.
This thing has gained such traction.
It has. You created a ruckus on social media, Mr. Drenning.
The feedback and response to this has been just crazy. But we're going to start giving shout outs to some of the folks that have some of the more creative teams they put together here. But it didn't take folks long to recognize, if you look at the defenses, what's your $1 defense? The 2012 Civ defense, right?
Oh, gosh.
So what I wanted to do was encourage people to spend a little money on their defense. Nobody wants tagged with that poor 2012 defense, our first year in the Big 12, that couldn't play dead in the Western, right?
No, you scored 70 points against Baylor and still had to sweat it out at the end of the game.
Now, I did notice some people didn't realize that there's 2 receivers. So they were thinking, hey, this is pretty easy.
I was guilty of that at first.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you're not the only one, Wes. A bunch of people had done that. So again, 2 receivers, and average, as you said, $3. But there's a lot of things that were left out. You can really get into a rabbit hole when you look at, wow,
sure.
And it was hard to do that. Like just for starters, at quarterback, how can I leave Clint out? I did. How can I leave
Will Greer too? Yeah.
Will Greer.
It would be hard. You'd have to put, this thing could get huge. You know what I mean? Huge. You'd have to put almost
Will Greer.
There's a lot of guys that weren't on here that, Absolutely. Even myself, but we're just doing the
we're not saying these are the 10 best. That's not what we're saying.
We know that.
We're just trying to hit the sweet spot in terms of price. But again, once we revisit this, maybe we'll find a way to expand on it. Space is an issue when you're putting these things together. But even stud steel, it's weird to have Jake and not stud, right? But, I mean, that's one of the things I thought of. Now, again, people were saying that one of the best bargains might be Rashid at $2. In my estimation, I think he is, because how do you put Fred Wyant not at 3? I mean, that's the great debate here. I mean, Fred Wyant, again, for those who don't know, Fred Wyant led us to our first win versus a ranked team, Pitt, in 1952. Fred Wyant beat Penn State. He had some help, obviously, 3 times. Fred Wyant led us to our first ever New Year's Day bowl game. Fred Wyant had a 30-4 record in his career. How's he not at least $3?
That's pretty good.
Not to mention he was, was the head official in one of the greatest NFL games in postseason history, the 81 Dolphins and Chargers in Miami in that divisional. But running backs, it's tough to leave out Adrian Morrell. I played with Adrian, right? A.B. Brown, Bob Gresham, 1969 1,000-yard rusher, even Charles Sims, Wendell. You look at Wendell down at the bottom at $1. I think Wendell's the best bargain on the board, right there with Rashid. Now that might be the trick to beat the system, the ghost in the machine. And
that's always what it is. You're looking for a value at $1. Like I saw a lot of people it's funny, Jed. I saw a lot of people in the tweets saying, well, Skylar Howard, I mean, he's undefeated 2-0 against Patrick Mahomes for $1.
One of the reasons he's undefeated? Guess who played lights out in both those games against
Wendell Smallwood?
Wendell Smallwood. Wendell Smallwood, your 2015 Big 12 rushing champ. So again,
you could go Skylar Howard and Wendell Smallwood, $2 right there. Then you got $16 to fill all your other positions.
And I mean, Robert Walker, I can make an argument that, I'd put Wendell ahead of Robert. You see what I'm saying? It becomes Garrett Ford.
That's
Sr.
tough.
How do you not respect Garrett Ford Sr. for the legacy that he left? And then when you get into the receiver room, the big one that's not there, and again, it would have just kind of really thrown a fly into the ointment of the pricing. I'd have to figure it out, is Reggie. Reggie Rimbert is not, again, these aren't the top 10 receivers. Reggie Rimbert would really kind of make it difficult to figure out where you'd bake that into the equation. You see what I'm saying? It's tough. Rich Hollins, Grannis Bell, David Saunders, Karan, Shelton could take the top off it like nobody's business. DeKeel, who doesn't love DeKeel? He was just add water and you got a first down conversion on third down. On down the line. And when it comes to offensive utility, okay. First of all, I tip my cap to you, Owen. You earned that, right? You're a 1,000-yard rusher. You had some big catches. You were a critical blocker. You played some tight end. You're right there with Anthony Beck at the $4 rate behind. Think of who you're behind right there. Danny Buggs. Okay.
Yeah, I was kind of like, man, I think I'm a little expensive, honestly.
I wondered, right? Well, there's some recency bias there too, right?
I tell you what, Darius Raynaud at $2 too is.
I said, man, utility. I might be taking Darius just to be
honest. That's just it. Now look at who's not on there. We go all the way down to Wes and to James, and it's like those two seem to have something in common, right? Wes, as you touched on, Wes Hours was a fan favorite.
He played he played D-line, he played guard, he played fullback.
His numbers aren't going to blow you away. He's just kind of a Paul Bunyan type figure, right? Like an Owen Schmitt. but Owen has the numbers to back it up.
Sure.
Wes doesn't have those numbers.
No, he
James
doesn't.
Jett, if you look at what James did at WVU statistically, it's not going to blow you away. But people recognize him for all these other reasons: his speed, the Olympics, his long career in the NFL. So there's a value to him beyond just the numbers. And then when you look at the defenses, we talk about it. But at first, let's double back to the offensive utility. When you look at some of the people who were left out, Michael Beasley, again, another guy I played with, comes to mind. He was a running back who moved to receiver. That's utility by definition, right? So you could do something there. Mark Rao, the tight end, that was the favorite target in the early 80s. Lovett Purnell, who had the big season in the mid-90s. Trayvon, more recently. Trayvon Wesco. Mickey Walzak. May he rest in peace. We just lost Mickey Walzak last month. But he delivered in big moments. He was a 6'1", 205-pound back, but they were very creative in how they used him in the pass game. He had a dozen catches against Syracuse. He had 8 catches in the big Peach Bowl win to earn MVP honors over Florida. So he could be a utility guy, running back, making plays in the pass game like that. Again, maybe in moving forward, I don't know where this goes entirely, but there's a possibility we might try and find a way to create a right-in column. That's one of the things. I thought about the idea of a defensive utility, just like there's an offensive utility, and maybe price 5 down to 1 with the defensive utility options. And then finally, I wanted a way, and again, it was just a space issue. And of course, leave it to 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 call me out. I wanted to put offensive line units on here. And at some point, I'd like to. And Orlowski, first thing he does is jumps on Twitter. I'm not even looking at this. There's no
I did see that. What about the lineman, dude?
Yeah, what about the lineman?
Where's Dan Moses, brother?
Exactly. We could do that because it would be pretty easy to come up what you think a handful of your favorite units are.
Jed, what might be the way to do this going forward is do one offensive one and one defensive one as well, too. We could always do that.
Oh, yeah, you could do that. Yeah, you could do that.
Maybe even throw the specialists in there, Sauerbrunn and McAfee and Vanderjack.
Don't you wish there was a way to turn this into it kind of feels like a competition because you find yourself in your mind's eye pitting one fan's team against another fan's team. Like there are so many.
I'm rolling through. I'm looking through the replies this afternoon, and at least 3 or 4 times I was like, "Oh yeah, that person's got the team right there. That's the team."
Yes.
And then I'd scroll for 30 more seconds, and I'd be like, "Wait, no, that's the team right there."
By the way, Owen, Wes and I put our teams out there. Wes has to do another one because he needs 2 receivers.
I got my new one. Yeah.
Well, I know who Owens can be. Now, Owen, you need to prove this, but I got to figure it out. It's perfect for you.
You know my team.
That's perfect for you. You got $18. You got 6 spots. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. You're taking the 2012 defense.
Oh no.
You're taking Sam James and Corey Ivy. You need a utility player, a running back, and a quarterback, and you have $15 left. Pat White, Steve Slayton, Owen Schmitt.
There you go. Wait, you said he has $15 left?
And here's the way. Yeah,
that means he got $1 left over for dollar beer night.
Yeah,
here's what's going to happen. He takes $5 each on Pat, $5 on Steve. Oh, yeah, that's right. $4. Oh, and you can take $4 for yourself. Okay,
so give him the 81 defense.
That's 14. You can take Gary Jennings to go to 16, Sam 17, 2012 defense 18. Because here's my argument: the 2012 defense won't be the 2012 defense.
When you're running the football like you guys would have.
They'll never be on the field.
Well said. Well said.
Right. Yeah. So it's
not going to be Geno and Tavon and Stedman scoring in 3 plays.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Although I don't know, Big O, you guys did have a penchant for hitting a lot of home runs
Sometimes
as well too.
But we did.
In a different kind of way, I guess.
But hey, I tell you what, show me a greater offense in the history of W football. Maybe 88. That'd be a great competition. That was better at 4-minute offense than you guys were.
Cool. I'll tell you what, that's a good one. All right, you ready for mine here, Jed, as we wrap this up?
Roll it out. You got to revise.
So my cheat code was going to be that since he's not on the list, I was going to see if I could take Will Greer for $1, right? But I'll color within the lines here and just stick to the spreadsheet. Okay. I'm going Rasheed Marshall $2. I'm going Avon Coburn $4. I'm going Chris Slim Henry $4. I'm going Kevin White $3. Sorry, Big O, but I'm going Darius Raynaud $2, and then I'm going the 2007 defense, Reed Williams Morty, Ivy, Scooter Berry, and company.
I mean,
for $3.
That's a great squad. You got to tweet that. Now you got to tweet that.
I will. I'll do it as soon as we wrap up here. But if I could get Will Grier for $1, then I would take the 2010 defense for $4. That would kind of be my. If I'm going down on dollar on the quarterback, I'll go up $1 on the defense.
We'll have again. Will's another guy that would have kind of thrown a kink in the mix of what I was trying to do with this pricing.
And I see what you were trying to do too. You picked the guys who had more. They had a bigger body of career than Will Grier.
Well, no, I mean Will could fit in. I mean, there's other guys with 2-year careers or limited exposure.
Yeah.
But it's
Bruce Irvin.
Fit in. But even with the defenses, okay, like even choosing, I initially had 5 quality defenses, and I thought, I'm going to throw that wrinkle in and put the 2012 unit on there just to make people spend on defense. But I had the 69 defense. Okay. I had that 69 defense, the 10-win season. When you look at some of these teams, they were 5th in the country in scoring defense. If you go back to old school, 1922, that big season, they were top 10.
Our national champion team.
In other words, when nobody was scoring,
it's the hill I die on.
Yeah, nobody was scoring in the game back then, but nobody was scoring even fewer against those guys. 88. I mean, they were top 25. 93 was top 20. 84, they were 12. I mean, so there's other teams that you can look for, but I thought the 81 team, which was 13th in the country in scoring defense, but you had some names when you can flash a Darryl Talley up there. You see what I'm saying? So
for sure,
there's some value to that. But yeah, 2007, I don't think people recognize, Owen, just how good that 07 defense
2007,
was.
we had a
Jeff
squad.
Castillo has 2 units on here, first of all.
We had a squad in 2007, straight up.
Yeah.
If you watched the Oklahoma game, if you didn't watch any of that season, if you just watched that one game, I mean, everybody was making plays. And that was against the quote unquote best team in the country.
Best team in the nation, yeah.
You know what I mean? So
you guys, the best team in the nation was on the field there, Owen, but the only way you were going to see him was if you looked in the mirror. Ayo.
That's right. And if you look to the Big 12 era, the problem is, in other words, some of Gibby's better seasons. Like I would argue that the 10-win season in 16, which was right up toward the top of the Big 12 and all the key metrics right there with K-State, the team that had, David Long, Kai Zier. I mean, some people online pointed this out as well. Rasul was in that backfield, picking everything off that came his way. Our Rasheed Benton was playing lights out football, just stopping everything that crossed the line of scrimmage. So they were playing good defense, but the problem was that's the point where, as a conference, we were facing these premium quarterbacks and premium offenses and 90 snaps a game when the rest of the country wasn't yet. Right. So our numbers suffered statistically. So we were better at the situational things that helped us go 10-2 in 2016 when Gibby was here. But when you look at the raw numbers, it's not going to impress you enough to put you in the conversation with some of these more historical units when the style of the game was much different.
Well said. And that's part of what makes these exercises fun too.
Yes.
Like I saw everybody picking Noel Devine. I'm going Famous Amos. You know what I mean? Like I think it's just because, listen, Noel Devine was crazy impressive and he was more my era, but Famous Amos putting up the numbers that he did in an era when it was, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And it's just, it's fun to see the differences.
That's why
I had the pleasure of speaking with him I think it was
Noel?
2 weekends ago, Avon down at, was actually at the, what is that, the Fly Zone or whatever, the trampoline park down in Charleston.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He was down there. He didn't have any power, and he looks up, and, of course, I'm sweating because I'm actually in the trampoline park getting after it pretty hard. And he goes, "Beer truck?" I said, "What's up, brother?"
That's awesome.
But, I mean, all time, you know what I mean? He's all time.
Absolutely. And I think it's neat to put 2, and that's why I try to do it this way. In most categories, I put 2. Because it's not just a matter of price; it's a matter of flavor or taste.
Absolutely, I liked how you put 2 in each category, except for the defenses. I liked how you did that too. Jed, you know what would also be fun and start some controversy to add to this list would be head coaches.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, add one of those Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Is it Dawn 5, Rich 3, or Rich 4, Dana 3? Is it Rich 5, Dawn? How I'd be interested to see how you
Where's Pappy Lewis come in?
How'd
Yes.
you shake that all down?
Yeah.
Where's Bowden and all that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd like to see it. So we'll continue to grow this and
we could have a
evolve this
spreadsheet that'll take up 2 screens for it. So yeah.
Hey, listen. As the wheels are turning here, this is a lot of off-season
Somebody
content
asked,
for us, gentlemen.
I don't remember who this was. Maybe we'll revisit it next week when we mention some of these folks. Somebody said this was a lot of fun. They'd love to see a basketball version. Well, I'm not built to do that.
I could help you. I could help you with that one, Jed. We could knock that out together.
Yeah, I'm not built to do that.
And then we could do a non-revenue sports one, right?
There you go. Yes.
Get Jed Jorko on there.
Yeah, that's the name that came to mind.
Meg Bulger on there, right?
Oh, come on, we got to get some riflers in there now.
Well, too, her name's escaping me right now. I know it starts with a K, but just like 3 or 4 years ago, the third overall draft pick in the WNBA draft was a WVU player. She plays for the
right.
Kaisray, I think. Kaisray, I think, is her name. She was the third overall pick in the WNBA draft, and she's having herself a really nice career. So she would probably be on there.
I'm trying to remember the quarterback for the Steelers from Ohio State that died last
Dwayne Haskins.
Thank you. Didn't she date his brother or something?
That sounds right. Yeah.
But I tell you what, my first Olympic sport pick. Yeah. I know who it is. It's Jenny Thrasher.
That's a good one. Real good one. Jenny Thrasher is a great one. There's some from the wrestling program that I'm sure deserve to be on there. A couple of Greg Jones,
program,
A couple of Nikki Izzo Brown's soccer players that have gone on to play in World Cups and in the. I mean, we've got some gold medal winners that have played for the women's soccer team as well too. Kadisha Buchanan, who played soccer at WVU a decade ago, she's like the captain of the Canadian women's national team. She's one of the best players in the world. So we could really have some fun with this. This would be good. You guys know where to get at us in the comment. Where do you want to give us your opinions on this? Obviously, it's blowing up on Twitter. Chime in, get on there, but also let us know what you would like to see. You want to see us add head coaches? You want to see us add defense? You want to see us do a basketball one, a non-revenue sports one? Let us know.
Add as many comments as you can.
Yeah.
If you're watching on YouTube, just slap it right down there on YouTube in the comments section. And that'll be easy for us to harvest those comments there as well, because we will double back to this and revisit some of the. It's just overwhelming in the 24-hour period.
Oh, I'm sure.
Put it out there.
See, now we should do this exercise, but with WVU classrooms. You know what I mean? Woodburn Hall, $5. Oglebay Hall, $4.
Oglebay, yeah. Pierpont. Yeah.
Pierpont, $1. Yeah. Dadisman Hall, $0. That was my dorm freshman year. All right. I can make Dadisman jokes. But that was good, Jed. That was great. We'll continue to evolve this. Give us all your thoughts and your comments. Let us know how you would spend your $18 here. And we'll see where this goes from here. One last thank you to our friends at GoMart. Here to keep you going. Make sure you're signing up for your GoMart rewards as you travel throughout the Mountain State and onward. Thanks to GoMart for being one of our presenting episodes, or one of our presenting sponsors, to this episode of ITG. So plenty to get to next week. We'll get you ready for the spring game. We'll continue this assemble your squad exercise and see where it goes from here. Keep you updated on any spring ball news. And we are still doing some moving and shaking behind the scenes to potentially bring you some fun guests here on the show as well. Finally,
by the way, Wes, thank you for last week. Did you see? Speaking of overwhelming.
Oh yeah, Golden Blue Dude.
The response for Golden Blue Dude's family on that GoFundMe. Mountaineer Nation delivered again, as we knew they would.
Yep.
But feel free, if you haven't yet, please do what you can to toss a little bit their way in their time of hardship. But thank you very much. I didn't want this to pass without voicing our appreciation. We asked you guys absolutely. Yes, great job.
I think, Jed, they were trying to raise $15,000 for funeral and health expenses. And last I checked, I think they were over 20. So great stuff there. Mountaineer Nation wrapping their arms around our own as we do better than anybody else. Certainly. Thanks for bringing that up, Jed. We also wanted to mention we're kicking around the idea here of potentially doing a live show after the spring game, maybe down in the Blue Lot or at some establishment in Morgantown. So just keep that in the back of your mind here for the next couple weeks. If you'd be interested in getting involved with that, if you're a business owner or a restaurant or bar owner who would like us to do that at your facility, we're kicking around the idea of doing some live stuff at the spring game. So we'll keep you updated on that next week as we go forward as well, too. Great stuff, gentlemen. This was a lot of fun. And I'm enjoying this as we roll through the spring here and continue to give you plenty to talk about here with content creator Jed coming up with all the good graphics as we roll along here in the off season. For Jed Drenning and Owen Schmitt, I'm Wesley Uhler. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. You've been in the gun.